No, we can't wait. We train and prepare 12 months of the year for opportunities like this, and we were really fortunate that in this competition we started really well, and from probably the halfway mark of the tournament, whilst you're thinking about every game and every opposition who's in front of you, we probably had one eye to finals. And I think I said publicly, we don't want to be peaking round 6, round 7, round 8 when we're going really well. We want to be playing our best cricket come finals time, and we know that we were going to have to play, if everything went to plan, 2 games of finals cricket, and so far that's gone well, and hopefully our fortune can continue tomorrow night.
What's Mitch got to do tonight to prove his fitness? So will he play?
Mitch can do whatever he wants tonight. He's definitely playing.
Absolutely. What's more? I mean, will he be able to bowl and do everything that he told him?
Not sure about bowling, but he's definitely going to play as a batter, at least, as the bare minimum. We've seen how much of an impact he can have. The stats probably show that you don't need to run as many twos here at Marvel Stadium. There's been a high percentage of boundaries hit here, and not that Mitch can't run. He's moving pretty well. Saw him chase my daughter at the park the other day, so he's moving okay.
Given the strength of your bowling lineup all season, does he need to bowl, or is he just sort of an added benefit if he can?
I think every captain and coach in the world wants to have as many bowling options as possible. 5's probably the bare minimum, and anything above that's a bonus. We saw with Mitch not bowling in our last final that we were fine with 5 bowlers. I can still bowl. We haven't finalised our team, so we don't quite know the makeup of the final 11 yet, but the more options the better, but we've also played a lot of games with 5 bowling options only. All good.
Hey, you've got obviously a couple of injury concerns. Great to see that Mitch is playing. But what about the Sixers? I mean, you've got 11 to choose from. What have you sort of made of how tough their road has been? I mean, you're probably sympathising with the team. It must have been pretty hard against them.
Yeah, no doubt. I think if we zoom out and think about everyone who's been involved in this competition, from every fan to everyone in admin to the players, the staff, the families of everyone involved, everyone's had to make sacrifices to make this tournament happen, and for that we're really thankful, and we feel very fortunate that we've been able to play a complete tournament. I think that if you spoke to anyone who's had an affiliation or as a stakeholder in this competition, they would be able to peel off a list of reasons why they shouldn't have been successful, and a list of adversity they've had to face, and we feel no different. But looking from outside, Sydney Sixers, they've had to travel a little bit more in the last couple of days, but probably living and playing in Perth, I probably don't feel a lot of sympathy for the travel. We normally have flights across the country for every game, but they've made plenty of other sacrifices like we have, like everyone has, and I've got no doubt that one of the great strengths of great teams and a team like the Sydney Sixers is that we know that it's going to be a fierce competition. Doesn't really matter the names on the paper. We know that good teams have good cultures, and irrespective of the personnel, they're going to be really competitive.
I mean, everyone sort of had their say on the Steve Smith situation from an opposition player. Would you want to be playing against him, or would you have any issues with him being brought in for the benefit?
To play for us or to play for them? No, it's a...
If he goes into the pool, he might be yours. But,
Wow,
I mean,
that's a question.
Should he be allowed to play exclusively for the Sixers?
Look, it's not my decision to make, and obviously in the last couple of games there's been some hurdles that I've had to jump over to try and get Steve to play, but I like playing against the best players in the world, and Steve's one of those guys. We feel like if we want to win this competition, we've got to beat the best players, and if he's a part of that Sydney Sixers team, well then that's a challenge that we look forward to. We like being able to test ourselves against the best, and we think that the match-up against the Sydney Sixers, they've been the best team for the last couple of years, and we can't wait for the opportunity, a little bit of redemption. They were too good for us last year in the big games, and we feel like we've taken lessons out of that, we've taken learnings out of that, and we feel like we've come back this year as a better team.
So you feel like the integrity of the competition would be handed or impacted on if Steve was to come in? You feel like integrity-wise of the competition, you'd be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I guess the last few games, as a fan, I would have liked to have seen Steve Smith playing. and that's with my fan cap on. Probably can't change my tune now just because we're matching up against them. But I don't sit in the office and make the tough decisions. We can't wait to be a part of another final tomorrow night. We'll do our homework on all of their players like we do, and like I said about good teams amongst good cultures, it probably doesn't matter as much who the names are on the piece of paper for the playing 11. We even know that everyone is going to be wearing a pink shirt tomorrow night. It's going to be a good cricketer, and it'll be a tough challenge.
You guys are coming up a 6 and 5 day break. You guys must be all feeling fresh. Is that a bonus, or would you prefer to be, given the nature of the BBL and the consistency of the game, prefer to be playing in that period?
Yeah, look, I don't think it makes much of an impact. If you start to add in flights, to and from Perth across the country, it can probably start to have a bigger impact. But because we haven't had to travel as much, and even the guys who have played the Sydney teams, they've been flying to Sydney, which isn't the longest flight you could have. So wouldn't read too much into it. I think that we'll stand here after the game tomorrow night and probably talk about how well each team batted and bowled, more so than we'll be talking about breaks or travel in between games.
Just on the Sixers, obviously, T20 crickets, it's probably rolling the dice. You've got quite a few injured players, and you don't want to take too many injured players into a game. How many is too many, do you think? And is that maybe something that's a bit wary of, taking too many injured players in, or maybe something you can exploit?
I'm not going to comment on their selection policy, but I know from our point of view, we take every player on a case-by-case basis. If we think someone's fit and available to play, we pick them. If we don't think they're fit and able to play, we don't pick them. It's as simple as that. And I think that every player knows within themselves whether they're right to play or not.
How do you prepare, if you look at last night's game, for example, how do you prepare to take on Jay Lenton or someone like Hayden Kerr who's thrust up opening the batting in the last minute? How do you prepare for that? Potentially tomorrow night they might have to bring in 3 or 4 players to fill the 11.
Every game of cricket we play, we probably face a surprise. In my head, day before the game, try and map out what I think the opposition's playing 11's going to be, and more often than not, I'm wrong. Particularly this year, we've been coming up against a lot of changes last minute. We've played games earlier in the tournament where there were guys who literally never laid eyes on, and the Sydney Sixers, they've got some familiar faces for us who we've played against in the past who we might not have seen as much this campaign, but I'm thinking of Jay Lenton, who we've played against for the Thunder for a few years. I'm thinking of Jake Carter, who I've grown up playing club cricket with at Fremantle and was in our Scorchers camp for the last few weeks, and now is potentially playing against us in a final tomorrow night. So they're all familiar names, they're all good cricketers. There's a reason why they're playing in a Big Bash final. They can all play, and we'll do our due diligence, do our homework, and be as best prepared for the game tomorrow night as we can be.
And what is it about the Scorchers Sixers rivalry brings out the best in the two sides? You've obviously got better room with the 2 times you played this season, but previous years hasn't been like that.
3 times we've played them this season. I think that in an 8-team competition, there's not a lot of teams, and more often than not, the best teams will find their way to the finals. And I think us and the Sixers, have probably been 2 of the better sides for an extended period now, and that means that we find ourselves playing off in big games. And like I said before, we want to be testing ourselves against the best. If you want to call yourselves the champions, you've got to beat the best teams, and we just can't wait for another opportunity to play what will hopefully be a really exciting game of cricket tomorrow night.
Moses, we will get it out of the way. Is Steve going to play tomorrow?
I'm clueless. I don't know. Obviously, we've had a couple more injuries from last game, and no idea. It depends how deep the COVID pool is that they currently have in place, whether the players in that have been exhausted or not, and whether other teams agree. I don't know, to be honest. So we didn't know for yesterday's game until about 10:30 in the morning. So we're preparing to find out pretty late. But yeah, we'll see.
Is the argument perhaps stronger now, given you've got the injuries and you literally don't have enough players to field an 11?
We do have enough players to field an 11. It's just we'd probably have to we'd have to pick bowlers to bat in positions and so on. But I think unfortunately it's just been one of those seasons where I don't think we're the only team that have had these issues. Other teams have all at some stage had to battle on with something along these lines. But that's just part of the game, and we're trying to do our best to roll with the punches, and even with the guys that we're playing, sometimes out of position, sometimes inexperienced players. I mean, they're just great opportunities and moments for those guys to learn and improve themselves as well.
Can you bring him into the pool for this last game? This last game, there's no opportunity to play for the other side after.
Oh, we're definitely going to ask, or we've definitely asked to bring him into the pool. Whether that gets across the line or not, I don't know.
How's your part going?
It'll be fine for tomorrow.
So, bowling, I mean, obviously you're more batting heavy in the latter stages of your career, let's just say, but I mean, you're going to be right fielding and running too.
Yeah, I'll definitely be able to. I dare say my bowling will be at a minimum, unless absolutely desperately needed. But with the amount of bowling options we already have, I can't really see in which world that would happen. To be honest, I find it tough just even trying to get some of our full-time bowlers a bowl sometimes. So trying to sneak myself an over or two, especially now when I'm carrying a little bit of a niggles, just it's borderline impossible. But we'll see. You never know what happens in a game of cricket.
But obviously, you're experienced enough to be able to make the call yourself to say, look, I'm not 100%, but I'm right to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not often you get to play in grand finals, and we've got a little bit of a break now before our next fixture. So, obviously, I'm hoping it doesn't get any worse, but they're the risks you take to try and, play in the matches that you work so hard for.
How's Sock Scarf going? Jordan's hamstring, ankle, and how many players can you afford to play under?
I think Sock's okay. I don't think Jordan will be able to get up, to be honest. I think that's, he's lost enough power out of that he won't be manageable in the field or running between wickets. Unfortunately for Jordan, it's really disappointing. He's been such a key player for us over the last few years, especially in finals. So it's a huge loss for us. We're obviously trying our best to get him up and ready to go, but it's looking like at least a couple of weeks for him, maybe even more. So, and unfortunately, it's one of those injuries that if it's not good, you can't make it good in 24 hours. So, we're all feeling for Jordan, but as I said earlier, it just provides another opportunity for someone else to come in for a big game and do their best.
Have you got players in mind in the pool that you want to bring in, or?
At this stage, we probably won't, unless we can get Steve. We're probably going to. I'm not sure there's anyone left in the pool that we'd want to bring in. So, I think we'll look within and look at our own resources before looking out, whether that is playing, maybe an extra bowler or, we don't know what the balance might look like, to be honest. It's something we've got to try and make a decision on, by whatever time the game starts tomorrow.
And Dan said he was 90% last night. Does he have to face another sort of fitness test tomorrow before the game?
I'm sure he will, and I think he'll find it pretty difficult saying no to playing. But again, I don't think he even had a field yesterday in his fitness test. He only had a bat. So I think it adds a bit of complexity when you're carrying a couple of people in the field already, and then the more and more you need to carry in a T20 game, it becomes very difficult because fielding is such a huge component of the game a lot of the time. And as you'll see here with the Scorchers, they're one of the best fielding units in the competition, and there's no surprise they've had a lot of success over 11 years. And it's the same as us. We've been the beneficiary of having guys like Sean Abbott, Jordan Silk, and these guys in the field for us. They're actually, that fielding standard is actually what probably gets us to these finals, taking those half chances and taking the majority of the full chances that you get, as well as the amount of twos that those guys can cut off, it makes a difference not only in one game but across 14 games. So the runs you save really make a huge difference across the season. So the fielding is really important, and you always want to get your key players playing, but you do need to make sure that they're contributing and able to contribute in a positive way in the field.
Is there a situation there with brothers as well? Is there potential they could get an exemption?
I don't think so. Mickey's gone back to Sydney, so I don't think that's a chance. I know Jack stayed here. I'm not sure if it's. I don't know exactly if it's day 7 or not for him. Again, that would be another big ask of a young man without hitting a ball in 7 days and being in isolation. But we'll see if the option's there and weigh up whatever happens at the time. But at this stage, we're just trying to, I guess, see all the information we have in front of us and then make the best decision we can.
And just on the ground here, the pitch here, Adam Bowden was saying the other day that it brings their spinners into play. Do you feel something similar with your spinners? And if Sophie's in the right to go, do you have someone who's first in line out of Todd and Lloyd to bring in?
Look, to be honest, I think between those two guys, they've both bowled really well for us. Todd's bowled really well for us this year. Lloyd's probably not had the opportunities he deserves, which is unfortunate, but he's also bowled well for us at times this year and bowled well for us plenty of times in the last couple of years as well. So it wouldn't be an issue bringing either of those two guys in, but I think Steve's going to be fine anyway for tomorrow's match. I'm sure one of those guys will feature in the 13 anyway, and I think what we didn't probably do that well in the first game is when we saw it spinning after 10 overs, we could have maybe utilised one of those guys, and we're definitely going to try and learn from that for tomorrow's game. There's definitely that option to bring someone in if needed.
Is there an option tomorrow that's sort of bring Nathan into the game a little bit earlier with the left-handers at the top of the order?
Well, we did that last game here against the Scorchers. We bowled him 2 overs out of the first 3 in the game, so I can't bring him in much earlier than that. But I think there's always that element of, it was only 5 days ago that those guys had faced him, and to Curtis's credit, after the first over, I think he picked up the speed and the spin of the wicket quite well, and he's quite a powerful batsman, so he's quite destructive in the last sort of 2 or 3 balls, which is always the risk about bowling any bowler two overs, not just spinners, but any bowler 2 overs in a row in the power play. Once the batter starts to pick up a few cues from, and it might only take 5 or 6 balls from the same bowler for those batters to pick up those types of cues and how the wickets are reacting to their deliveries. So, it's always the risk you take, and it's much easier to do if you're taking a wicket and you keep getting new batters roll out. But again, we're just going to have to see what the wicket's doing tomorrow. And I don't even know who's bowling the first over before the game starts, let alone the second and third. So, we're just going to have to play what's in front of us.
And with your guys, we constantly hear them speak about the culture that you and Shippy have built at the Sixers, and being instilled to play with no fear. I guess that showed last night. What's it like to sort of captain a side with that sort of buy-in?
Yeah, look, I don't think I've ever said to play with no fear, because there's absolutely no doubt that when times get close, people will feel, a fear of failure or nerves or whatever it might be. I definitely encourage stepping forward into that and being courageous, but I try not to use the word fearless, because if you're fearless, you might not be all that human at times, because I think it's very natural to feel intimidated at times, and especially when you're under pressure or there's so many external expectations, and then you've got to manage your own internal expectations as well. I think the fear is going to arise at a lot of times throughout a season. It's just how we manage that. So, I think trying to be brave and courageous rather than fearless, and being smart while we do it, that's kind of the way that we prefer to look at it, and as a sort of learning environment, and that it's okay to make mistakes as well. We want to take that sort of the judgment from inside our group away, and just know that each and every one of us have got, it's okay if you miss out, as long as you're learning, as long as you're doing what's best for the team, then that's completely fine.